Jupiter, point of Tali Shirley here, and I began to record something so beautiful with the midheaven on Deneb Algedi and the sun trining Lilith and Venus and Valentine's Day and a lot of sweet things. And then I had to stop the recording, and all the magic was abrupted. Um, and so I would like to address this being a Venus Day and a Valentine's Day. I don't know about all the dark things of Valentine's Day. I just find it fascinating that we have a holiday for romantic love. And I think that with everything that's going on in the world, it's important to mention that um, when we talk about romantic love, um, the notion that find a partner or even a sexual practice that is good for your nervous system is important, whichever way you define this, okay? Um, it has never been more important, perhaps in recent modern times. Um, and uh, and that's going to take the conversation a little bit away from Valentine's Day um, into the bi-sextile and working with the bi-sextile. So the bi-sextile is basically an aspect, a yoga between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, which Saturn is going to conjoin and other planets are going to tap into. In my previous work, I have explored in depth many things to do with the bi-sextile, and I have been one of the people who are honored to have had the chance to create talismans for the bi-sextile. It has been um, a very exciting experience, a very it has been an experience. Okay, you're creating something that not many people know of, and this is one of my points in talking about that, so that you will be able to create that as well. And you are creating something that is of very rare conjoining, and this is in a time where everybody wants to take your ability to work, your ability to live in a house, your very dignity and identity. Um, and juxtaposed to those times, we have this magical work that is very rare. Even if we get as many people to do talismans of the coming aspects of Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, and we try to explain the genuinely intricate art of astrological magic and simplify it so that it's accessible for more people, and we are not even super traditional about our elections, because you have to compromise a lot when it comes to capturing an outer planet and capturing the bi-sextile. It moves slowly, but you're not going to get the traditional perfect elections. If you do, and in those changing times where, okay, for some of us had to even escape human trafficking and so on, you could get your talismans, you get curses against your talismans, how to remove curses from talismans, and so on. So this is a part of my in-praxis experiences as a beginner astrological magician. Okay, I have dabbled into astrological magic only in recent 2-3 years, um, but this is not something you want to miss out on. Okay, and as an outer planet girly, um, working with outer planets has been tremendous experience for me. So I was just using a little bit of oil that I made, that I consecrated, and the way I worked is to have election for each planet separately. I did include fixed stars, for example, whether it's Beta Persei or if Pluto is in Aquarius, then Deneb Algedy. Those are to balance the effects. You don't necessarily have to do it. I wanted to make sure that I have as much support. We have Neptune with Rahu. It is a very intense, okay, combination. It's not for the faint of heart, and at the same time, I wouldn't want it to be for the unchosen few, or chosen few, because that's even worse. Because who picks them and why? Um, and so that is about the process of making that talisman. I choose essential oils or honey, and because this is something that you can blend. It's very much inspired by Caitlin Koppock's Thema Mundi work, where you couldn't work with the traditional um, form of stone because you combine energies. And you needed something that you can blend into another, and this is how Sphere and Sundry came into the world. So that would be the work of Caitlin Koppock and now Austin Koppock and many other people that dabble into that thanks to Caitlin. Um, and so I did, for the same concept of use something that I can blend. Honey stands the test of time, essential oils stand the test of time. And just when you apply to something that stands the test of time, especially when you're working, I'm going to talk about the work with the separate planets. Saturn that rules time also rules courses. So this is where, as a person who is coming to this art from a very secular perspective, bless you, sneezing, truth, that is honoring of the magic and honoring of the spirits. Okay, secular does not mean not acknowledging spirit. Um, but definitely not from brotherhoods or sects or secret societies. Really, none of that. That the very fact that I'm making magical work sends ripples, and people with various forms of interests and desires and beliefs can try to course that work. So I want to prepare you that such thing can happen. Um, okay, not all people use the forms of magic for the good of humanity. And this is important to state. This is why you would hear people like Christopher Lee saying, don't dabble into the dark arts. You will lose not only your mind, but also your soul. And just learning a tiny bit of what is the dark arts, which I do not practice, fortunately. I may work with Beta per se, but I work in a completely different perspective, okay, for defending from, okay, for those things, not creating them, which is very important. By the way, from my experience, I can tell you that to remove course, you don't need to learn how to course the same course. Sometimes you don't even know the course you removed. You feel energy is not good energy. You can work with elements, with your intention, and be persistent. And this is not to erase the work of people who remove courses, but this is just to tell you that no, you don't have to course people to learn how to remove courses. There are other ways to tend to this art, so you don't have to dabble into the dark arts to be healer, which is important. Um, I'm not saying you can do everything with that, but it's something that if you're like me and you like astrology and you understand the rarity of the occasion and want to capture talismans, yes, I want you to know that you don't have to do dark arts. You don't have to do bad things for humanity. You don't have to do any of that. It's an alternative practice that you can create in yourself and connect with the planets for your own experience as well. And so it is important to know that not all the people deal with those things in that way. And this is why you would sometimes hear about occult, meaning the dark arts or the arts that cause, okay, damage to other people. I don't mean self-defense. I don't mean return to sender. Um, but I mean cursing. I actually had a neighbor that told me when I curse, those things happen. I said to her, I never curse, I only send back to sender. Um, and so, and this is important, okay? Um, you can decide for which is your choice what you do with that. You can think about a curse um, as attack. Okay, if you attack somebody not with their own weapon, and that is of course legitimate. You have to know the art of war. That is of course legitimate. Okay, especially if you release yourself from oppression and stuff like that. But you also will have to know the art of war. For example, with the spiritual war, if people come with astral rape, they have dabbled into a territory where in my beliefs, I think it is mercy killing for them to die because I don't want to send them rape back. Okay? So this is something that you're taking your chances. If you do courses, then you're taking a chance that you're going to dabble into somebody that looks at rape and sees that as way more serious an offense or an attack that you have perhaps intended. Okay, perhaps for you rape is not something that maybe you've gone through or went through ritual abuse and you don't think it's nothing much, and you think that they can either return it to sender or, I don't know, turn to your beliefs or to your solutions, and they see it as, we don't talk with terrorists. Okay, this is something, or they see it as, well, this is actually death magic against me because sexual energy is life energy, but I don't want to rape you and leave you in suffering. I want you to have death. So I send back to sender with your ability to have bless you with the ability to have access to death. Okay, so if you need to unalive yourself, for it to be without suffering, so that you can cross over and maybe have better experience in afterlife. I don't know, whatever your belief is, but anyway, this you have to take into account that what you think as a curse that somebody may suffer, or maybe in the spark of the moment, um, that they can see it completely differently. Okay, so this is something about attacks in general, and that is important. You're going to have to think for yourself, how are you going to protect your magic when you do that. Um, and and another thing is patterns. If energies try to interfere in your magic and you never call them, they don't have any authority over your patterns, your work, your creativity. Okay, this is your work. Okay, it's not like you consulted with somebody, they gave you idea, you gave them credit. Okay, you consulted for the terms. Okay, there's all things to do with will and consent and informed consent. Attempts to cause you to have contracts that are illegal, and again, illegal contract is illegal contract, and this is also important. It's your magical work, it's not somebody else's. And again, be authentic. There are things where, let's say, if I did a talisman of Uranus, okay, I did another jar and I conjoin it with, let's say, Themamundi for personal use. I'm not going to sell it, to see what it does, okay. um, but so you have to be authentic. You have to understand what you put in there, and if you did put somebody else's work, then you're not going to trade in that, unless they, okay, agree. Now, if you live in small housing and you have this talisman next to that talisman next to that talisman, then it's impossible to implement that. It means your work is your work, it's not somebody else's. Okay, if you didn't blend the talisman into the other talisman, that means your work is your work. Okay, that is very important, because it basically means that you don't have access to the housing or the office where you could separate the two. And it's true that magic affects us all. Okay, magical workings are affecting of humanity, especially when we talk outer planets. So let's talk a little bit about, um, and now let's talk about the consecration. Okay, now again, if anybody comes to course you or to um, tell you for what to do or what to this or what to that, again, if they mistreated you, if they raped you, if they try to take control over your art, it is your art. It's not their art. and you will see a lot of people trying to be your teachers, trying to be your this, trying to be your that. It's either like Caitlin Kopok dealt with, that nobody wanted to be her teacher when she was doing Tima Mundi. Nobody, nobody. They wanted her to be completely isolated, okay? Or alternatively, you come to do a ritual, and people want to interfere in that ritual. The fact that they interfere or they said something in that ritual doesn't give them anything. You never asked for that interference. So they don't run you. If you choose to do something, this is you. And if they rape you and then interfere in your magic, they are not teachers. Okay? They are offenders. And they are not entitled to anything of your work, whether it goes commercial, whether it's for personal use, whether it's for credit. They're not entitled to anything. This is called astral attack. And that is highly important. Okay? Especially if they wake you up with curses and stuff like that. No, they're not teachers. If I go to negate the course and see, oh, I see why I'm negating the course, because somebody doesn't want me to do that, and then they're going to claim that they said that they had told me that now is a good day to consecrate. No, that's not what happened. And if they switched over, then they switched over, they lost you. Okay, if they raped you, they no longer, you don't entitled to them in anything. And that is very important. So we want as many people. If I ask myself how to protect my work, I said to teach as many people for how to do these talismans, so that the knowledge is accessible for them, so that there is enough for everyone, and this is how to protect the work. Okay, if it's enough for everyone, you don't have to fight Gog Magog over a jar of honey. Okay, it is supposed to be clear. This is my practice, this is my method, and perhaps the fact that I joined Deneb Algedi is contributing to that, and a better per se. So now, yes, you're going to consecrate for each planet separately, and you can do for the jar of honey or oils or whatever, and you're going to have to compromise on elections. So I do suggest you to work with astrological magic and remedies. You see, I want this to be very accessible to people, but also, I must admit, it's not easy. And a part of the reason it's not easy is not necessarily only because of the planets, but also because of the way in which astrological magic has been practiced secretly. Okay, so the fact that it's happened secretly, it means you're not going to know. You don't understand. If somebody curses, you don't understand what they want, why they do that. Okay, where are they coming from? And they might not understand what you are doing. Okay, it can simply be eating phone home, like we don't understand each other. Where it's like what with what ritual, with what this, with what that. Okay, for they want to know, and for you it's like, why are you invading my space? Okay, so people have fear of the new, and that is okay. So I don't want to disillude you around that. You do need to have, you do need to learn along the way, and this is with spiritual war in the background. So that is something that I don't want to forget telling you. Okay, it is not just the elections, and that you have to be particular about the elections. You don't get to be too particular about the elections when you're doing such a bi-sextile. This is not Emamundi. Okay, it's only 3 planets, but it's outer planets. They move very slowly, and whenever you get to capture, you capture. Particularly if you are not years in that practice, and that means that sometimes have to move a house, sometimes this, sometimes that, and that is something that you want to take into account. That it's challenging, but a part of the magical work is also the process of doing these things. Now let's talk for the separate planets. Uranus. So Uranus was the first planet I captured, and I did this in for the previous place, and I captured it with Beta Persei's fifth lunar mansion. Fifth lunar mansion to support the nervous system. Uranus shakes up the nervous system, and with Uranus, setting intention and releasing was very important. So I set intention, I released, as I set intention now and release for to do what Uranus Sedna or whatever Uranus transits that we're going to have in Taurus for the bi-sextile. And Uranus shakes up your life, and you wake up, and I think it was twice I woke up. I was like, oh, what is the chart today? Oh, Uranus talisman, boom. Okay, not the usual procedure you have for a talisman. Very important. I don't know if other people have other experiences with Uranus. Um, I think Gracia Tasio dabbled into Uranus in the beginning of Taurus, sidereally, so I would definitely check her work. Her course on astrological magic is fantastic. You won't be able to apply that, so this is very important to say as well. Uranus is the unexpected and letting go. You can begin to purchase for the things that you want, or to arrange the things that you want, to okay, receive the things, but there's a lot of letting go of even if it will happen. This is something I noticed with Uranus. It's like, will it, want it, you wake up and boom. This is not the ritual magic. If you are astrological magician listening to this, you have to let go of everything you know about magic. That's Uranus, and that's the point. Okay. So I did notice that combining fifth lunar mansion, and it's going to be also for the beginning of Gemini for the entire bi-sextile. Um, Fifth lunar mansion is good balance of spirit and matter, is good balance for the nervous system, and um, I joined the Beta Persei because Uranus was in Beta Persei. You have to check now for Beta Persei. You have to check she's not eclipsing. You can do Algol minima, and you see that eclipse was at least a couple of at least a day ago. Okay, that is very important because we don't capture eclipses, at least not in my practice. I know that there will always be other things to do, other people to do other things, and so on. Um, so we normally don't capture eclipses. Just state that it's considered a very fated energy. That if you make something, you make, let's say, a dummy to replace a king, but not. And another way can be protection from eclipses. So you might use something to protect from eclipses, but not to create a talisman on an eclipse. This is something that is another. I wouldn't say ruling magic. It's just a practice because it's very intense energy that anyway is so unpredictable. And when you do talismans, you do want to have level of predictability. The closest to doing an eclipse talisman is a Uranus talisman because Uranus is the unpredictability. So I anchor it in with Beta Persei that is assisting in defending from undesired effects. I still dealt with spiritual warfare, things that are going in the city. Got to Uranus also rules suicide, so um, okay, dabbled into for the issues to do with suicide, assisted death. Okay, so those extreme experiences, I cannot say if it's connected to talisman or not connected to talisman. I have to say this very honestly. That is something I had to tend to, whether it is in my work, whether it is just because this big agendas on the city, on cities, and it's global issue, regardless of whether you do astrology or not. Um, but to say that it's completely antidoting those things, it helps a lot. I've had a rock of Beta Persei again going missing. Um, so there's a lot of attacks about that. I even had a tincture of Timamundi stolen. Okay, but I finished the tincture, but the bottle was stolen, and that happened as the bi-sextile perfected. Okay, um, Pluto can rule occults and talisman, and Neptune is something going missing. So this is okay. You are Okay, it's not, it's kind of like if I had to make the analogy for academic studies, you would think about, well, this is not, it's not rocket science, but we are making rockets. And 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 that is important to know with these things, that it, it is, it is magic that is very rare, and it pinpoints a time where there's a lot planned, and you're dealing with a lot of things in general. Okay, um, especially when you don't go with the plan of okay, robotifying yourself, um, and, and 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 that is uh, creates another thing. So that was for the Uranus. But I did notice very protective. Every time something hard aspects Uranus, I put on my Uranus materia. For me, it was also the kind of body butter slash oil slash whatever texture it came out. And it's gonna come out in funny texture. Okay, you're not making a cosmetics brand. You're making, okay, you're making something that is used for magical purposes. Okay, to remediate certain energies, and or to learn in a way that is engaging with energies, engaging with the planets. The way people actually learn, just don't tell you about that, because they do it secretly, and they do it in dark arts, and they have to do horrid things. You don't. This is why, okay, for the work of the Kapaks, the work of Christopher Warnock, of people making astrological magic at Gracia Tasio available for people, is so important. Okay, that you can do it not in a dark arts, but you can do it benefically for you, so you don't have to lose your mind and your soul, very simply put. So, if you find that interesting, I noticed that hard aspects from the moon, or now from Sol to Uranus, using the Uranus materia is very calming for my nervous system. Because the moon was conjoining Uranus in some of the works, uh, I would sometimes have arguments with my mom, like emotional. Okay, so this is moon is mom, moon is also housing, so this is something you want to take into account. But on the other hand, it would be moon on the fifth lunar mansion, so it would be an argument that is liberating in the sense it's not easy, but in the sense that I would have a eureka. Oh, that is what went wrong here, and then that would be remediated. So that is my experience. The next planet I captured was Pluto, and that would already be when I escaped the human trafficking place, where one of the honey jars of the Beta Persei was left in the previous estate. And I hope it will bless the city, or protect the city as much as possible. Um, but that was, yes, that was something. I used that honey jar to protect from human trafficking. Okay, that is, and still I had to flee the place. Only now Uranus rules gas, Pluto rules oil. Only now I remember that this estate is 2 meters from Jordan. Yes, it is. Um, I can give you for what the address was, more 19, apartment 7, 19 and 2, in Arad city, and this is, I give you the address because if they will do funny rituals of like trying to antidote of what I did, or human trafficking or stuff like that, so you know for the address of the place that, uh, for if you are thinking to buy in this place or to rent in this place, or to invest in this place, just you make sure that you clear for the energies, and you don't allow human trafficking to take place in your estate. Okay, so wonderful location, wonderful place. I did half moons in the soil, it's fertilizing for the soil. It's a lot of blessings, but still I had to flee the place, and now I understand there's a lot of natural resources underneath the ground. So this is an entire Arad area, and I guess also Beersheba, which I will have to flee as well, and Tel Aviv, because they are targeting the zones where they begin to slaughter cats and do a funny ritual with nails, not human nails, just um, and I tried to counter that, and I guess I was like, okay, this gigantic thing, and I understand that underneath the soil there is natural resources. They come in for these natural resources, so they're going to gather the place, and so this is important for entire city to know. I cannot tell everybody in the entire city, and I don't know where to move. So this is we had in academia a teacher called the Gal Ariely, and he taught us about the course of resources in politics. And the course of natural resources is that your government or your regime does not depend on your money. So while taxation, people are like, hey, we should not pay taxes to these pedos, and who am I to judge you? Um, okay, perhaps if you didn't, I would be able to work. I don't know. Okay, like I don't know to predict that, um, and I know that people with disabilities provide a lot of jobs. So if it is again, I actually tried to apply for one such job, and I said very honestly, I have problems standing on my feet for too long. Are there conditions that are compatible? She didn't offer any type of um, uh, adjustments where I could do partial job and maybe get paid, okay, for the more in a different way. Um, but she said, no, it's a job with a lot of responsibility, which is kind of like you tell a person with a disability that is honest with you about their disability, both their trauma and the physical disability, and you go and talk to them about responsibility. So that, of course, made me very angry. Um, and I said, well, so the problem is if we come to work with you, with your conditions and the way you see work, we become disabled. But if we do it correctly, then the disability provides a lot of jobs, so we shouldn't be afraid that we won't be able to take care of our communities in that regard. Also, karmically or in terms of wealth, one of the reasons I actually wanted this job is because I'm very fortunate to have parents that take care of themselves, and I never took care of the elderly. I don't have children myself, and it's like, and I haven't created good karma of taking care of people that in older age. To make of contribution, whether it's volunteering or job, would be appropriate. Okay, and so going back to Pluto, this is where I would also already do that talisman, and that is tending to the human trafficking that is money laundered with oil and gas. So, and the understanding that taking energy from the soil, from the sun, rather than taking energy from underground, changes the facets. It changes things, and I address that in my other works as well. So with Pluto, I find out that when I do protective talisman or a protective from courses, I would address, because it's in Aquarius, it would address the science behind why it's done and the science of how to negate it. So let's say somebody would try to make me look like I am crazy, then actually what you see with this work is a part of the natural effect of antidote in that I didn't even know what the course is. I would work with Pluto on the energies, usually rapey energy or not good energy, and then I would just want to get the rape away. Um, but then I would begin to return to talk about, scientific things and my endeavors and so on. And I understand that that was what the rape was trying to take away from, make me look crazy. So I don't get a job and I'm not appreciated in my field and I don't have a legacy, which is okay, dumbfounding to me. But the fact that it exists, then Pluto would be assisting, especially when conjoined with fifth lunar mansion talismans, to get to the core of why is this thing. What get to the core of your own essence and express yourself authentically. Great thing with Pluto is authenticity. For example, Pluto is about to square my Venus, and I've had several occasions where I told to myself, just yesterday, I was like recording a couple of things, and I was like, there's something here that is weird, and I kind of got omens around that, and I'm like, okay, Pluto is squaring my Venus, I don't know how to deal with this transit. And then boom came the future of humanity and all these grand videos and this grand wealth that Pluto in Aquarius also has to offer. And this is exactly what Pluto will do. You have to be authentic. Okay, let's say you catch yourself, let's say it's Venus, okay, you catch yourself overgiving or obsessing or this or that, and you get an omen about that, you kind of like, okay, I see what's going on here, I authentically don't know how to deal with that, then you get a eureka. Now, Pluto will give you the transformation. Okay, you have to be authentic about something. For example, we talk about the human trafficking. Um, you have to be authentic about the fact that having good sex with that is loving, that is passionate, that is romantic, that is satisfying for both people also increases both of your wealth. Okay, so from that perspective, I can say that sugaring and mutually benefic relations, they can increase a candida, which is draining off. If the life energy of one partner is drained from this, then we have wealth that you don't really enjoy, health problems, okay, for like this candida and so on, which actually thrives on sugars. Now your brain thrives on sugar when I'm talking, but here I'm talking about, the type of, let's say you can have a chocolate, the dark chocolate is filled with magnesium, and also has sugar, or you could have those sweet chocolates that are oily and that are this and that are that, um, and that's the difference, okay, between celebrating sexuality um, and an energy drain. And good awareness from both parties can be, because I'm not going to necessarily incubus succubus, good awareness from both parties or all parties that are partaking in that um, is important. And then we can address the fact that having good sexual relations with one another that both of you enjoy, and the emphasis is both of you enjoy, is very good for both of your wealth. Okay, this is why with Uranus, now Pluto Uranus conjoining the two, sometimes people have an extramarital affair or be falling in love or infatuated, and then you have to look at removing the blocks for creativity, and sometimes that's serious block. If you, for example, one person wants to be musicians but they don't want to traffic humans in secret society in be double agent, then it's a major block for their success. Okay, so also, and then for that person, okay, they might fall in love with musician, or they might, or the spouse might fall in love with musician. Okay, and that is another thing that you can begin to see, or let's say Pluto Soul. So you can have the people being cancelled or versus people being visible. When I did water expands upon cooling, okay, there was a situation where somebody was becoming more and more visible, and they knew everything about the visibility. And it's not that I don't know, but I didn't practice that, and my energy was drained and so on. And I tended with the content to things that they could never tend to from within those from the place that they were. And so that juxtaposition of being of what can we tend to with the visibility that one can have, like the editing and the services, and with the and the funding to go to the best photographer, that and so on, and again the talent that exists in both, versus what for the other person deals with, also with astral rape, with this, with that, and tends to these things and tries to, goes against being recruited to double agent and so on, and talks about something absolutely nobody can talk about, including for what the show was inspired from. And that is also, it preceded my bi-sextile talismans, but this is also Pluto authenticity, where I have to authentically deal with a juxtaposition where just one side perhaps wants to talk about these things but can't. Um, and I'm not over giving credit here, okay, if I gotten to know the materia a little bit. They want to talk about these things but can't. For the other, they want to look as good but can't. They want to look as good in front of camera but can't. And if you go for the makeup, then you have MK Ultra people at the makeup shop, or you go for okay the lighting, okay, then you have to move a place, then you have to this. So this is important. And when you are authentic about it, it's like, hey, that thing I don't have right now. You understand the polarity here, and Pluto can assist with addressing these things. Pluto is also associated with Scorpio, which is somewhat associated with Mars. I remember when I blamed social engineers for doing social engineering, then they gave me a chart. At first I ignored it, but then I noticed that the chart they gave me have exactly same Mars as me, just that mine is retrograde, exact degree. And I was like, okay, this is why. This is why we do the same things at the same time, each from our own perspective. Um, and that is not about anybody being a copycat. We just have the same Mars at the same degree. So, okay, so nobody is each other's copycat, um, and so it doesn't mean that it wasn't social engineering, but this is why we would tend to the exact same thing sometimes, even to the case itself, um, and at the same time, even if there's no connection, even when I didn't know the person, by the way. Um, then I did a Neptune. And with Neptune talisman is something very interesting. With Pluto, first of all, the role of something recycled. Okay, so something recycled, the battles for something or something else, something you usually don't do in astrological magic. Okay, with Pluto, you do. Very important. Okay, Pluto rules something that is recycled. I don't say on purpose do that, but sometimes it's like, that's the election. What do you do? What do you do? Well, I have this bottle here for this. And then they're like, yes, I have this empty bottles of essential oil. Pluto is essential oil. Pluto is something recycled. Oh, and I actually began to work. I think now I never connected that with Pluto, but it's in my 12th house, and I began to work. The Finns, by the way, are very known to preserve something, and if you have something, let's say shampoo, dilute it and still use it. I began to do these things. I never connected this to Pluto, but now I do. And they're also the ones practicing housing first and believe in the patient, which is the best curation for what people call psychosis, um, that there is. For no, and I noticed that this practice is also wealth practice, because I can celebrate consumerism, but I can also, if I don't have, let's say, for the other resources, I can also recycle, and I can also, um, dilute and still preserve the qualities, and sometimes even very good quality. Let's say I have a perfume, so I can, for personal use, dilute it, and then I am standing in the ethics of scent when I go for outside, especially as aromatherapist. Some people love how I smell, but some people, even when you make perfumes, okay, if it's the exact thing that you're going to have mishaps. Sometimes those mishaps are going to send you into the bedroom. Bless you. That was my mother sneezing when I said that. You see, housing. Um, but sometimes those mishaps are going to send you into the bedroom for 3 nights. For sometimes those mishaps are going to smell funnily, and you just work and you tried it on yourself, and you think it smells good, especially if you needed this particular essential oil, and you go on the train and people are leaving the area. Okay, if it's or on the other hand, I thought I said that stinks, that stinks, that stinks, and it was like, and so that stinks, and then with people it was anti-traumatic oil, and then after 7th October, I meet young people on the train that were evacuated from their villages, um, and I let them for says it stinks, but it's good for against trauma, to calm down immediately, and the young girl smells that, and she says, "Oh my God, this smells so good." That scent, okay, and it's different when it's essential oils. It's got to smell different in different occasions. Um, so that was the effect of Pluto. Let's talk about Neptune. With Neptune, naturally, you will have something leaking. I had oils that were leaking. I had attempts to interfere, so sometimes to spill some oil. Um, with Neptune, I had seawater as well, especially for the consecration. I'm going to talk about the consecration later. I had jar of honey that was half spilling. Now, you want to think about the overflowing cup, but you also want to understand that with Neptune is also what is missing. So, my jar of honey for Neptune was not full. And that made a lot of sense. Okay? Again, it's nothing you will run into in astrological magic usually. It's usually very detailed. You're going to be having this, you're going to be having that. You have the omens, the things that arrive, but you prepare and you fast 2 weeks before and so on. Outer planets have a different way of working on your life. I'm not saying you're not going to be fasting or not going to be doing this or not going to be doing that. Actually, before my very first Neptune introduction, I was almost fasting for a day by chance. Um, but at the same time, um, it's gonna with Neptune. Okay, that's just the way it is. Neptune is about things going missing, um, miraculous healing, the dissolution of something. Okay, um, and Neptune has to do with spies, with drugs, difficult to diagnose diseases. And you have courses now with the co-presence of Saturn, of difficult to diagnose diseases because of courses that you're gonna know, okay? And yeah, tending to Neptune is something that has happened before the war in Ukraine, and then came the war in Ukraine. Um, so tending to that which is missing, Neptune is conjuncting my midheaven, um, is something that I definitely can say. I've had the Neptunian. I'm also reaching. I was in my Pluto square when working on the Pluto talisman, by the way, and I'm approaching my Neptune square as well. So I don't have yet Neptune in Aries. It's going to conjoin Saturn, so I'm probably going to wait for Saturn to move a little bit. Um, you can do as you wish. Okay, you can Neptune. You can, or I might be daring and do that as well. It's like with Neptune, it's a different type of releasing it. It's with Neptune is accepting that you're difficult to let go. You want to think about, um, let's say, people losing loved one, okay, and is a part of grieving is the part of letting go is you can't just let go. Okay, and accepting the fact that you can't just let go. You can't surrendering your inability to surrender. It's not okay. This is why Neptune can rule spiritual bypass, because you dissociate so much. Okay. Neptune is also where things like longing, limerence, but also the dream and the reality. Did you know that actors and actresses, for example, they're also very isolated, but they go into malleable identity so much so that they sometimes maybe even genuinely take identities that they don't know and you don't know that are related. So you could have genuine relation in that sense. Okay, you can call it a part of charisma or a part of the genuinely spiritual Neptunian process of doing acting or spying. And thus if Neptune rules psychiatry and psychology, without discussing that and without discussing these processes and without discussing espionage, for example, we don't have a complete view on psychology and psychiatry, which means our patients cannot heal. On the other hand, and I have witnessed it firsthand, as trying to channel a person, and I asked about their death, and they tell me this country is North Korea, and this country was the country that people sell kidneys to get passports. And I was like, what is he talking about? And he shows me what is he talking about, and the process of getting to know from zero, um, with the channelings, and sometimes receiving the positive afterlife experiences, and sometimes things that were uh, downright disturbing, and all these things. All the while, the grieving family is looking to honor his death, and that happening um, in a way where I had to let go and surrender my own control of what's going on. I was just trying to channel. That's all. Okay, that's what happened, and receiving healing that has to do with my lineage. Now, of course, it's not that this person is of my lineage. Um, no, we don't know what is in our DNA, but this is not necessarily from that. But this is the way Neptune works, and Neptune can, in that sense, can sometimes cause a lot of drama when you are not allowed to talk about these facets of reality. And if people are too, this is why I'm anti the dogmas that send people to, oh, this person is crazy. Okay, for this person is crazy, we haven't solved what the issue is. What is the process? Okay, for this, is there miraculous healing there? Is there a form of relation is magically being received? And with Neptune, you're sometimes not going to know. It's going to be completely unexpected. Okay, if you do a channeling experiment, completely unexpected, then there's some sleeping position that you suddenly get into from when you were an infant. So how would you even know? And then you're like having memories from as an infant from your parent that is alive. So it's kind of like, what the heck is going what the heck is going on? Well, the juxtaposition of that experience one and experience two, or a person maybe going away, and that person was actually deeply psychological. They were looking to the experience of everything, sometimes to the point that I had to like, hey, dude, okay. So, um, so that is kind of like, okay, oh my God, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, disturbing at the same time. With Neptune, is something that was missing that you didn't even know you need, so you could get this miraculous healing. Where is that coming from? That is Neptune, and it's a blessing. Okay, so or you could be tending to something or somebody that is missing, and then find out. For example, I was tending to the missing children, and I found out that there are leaders in many cases. Okay, so um, that is work with Neptune. You have to be now connecting that with Pluto and Uranus. So you have to first of all become authentic about the fact that there's something happening here, that you genuinely need this miraculous healing, that you're genuinely in a void, that you're genuinely what people call codependent. Okay, I was joking that I was codependent on a dead man for 3 years, that I didn't know when he was alive. So that was an experience that wasn't his, okay, an experience where the work with that which is missing, sometimes what is missing, you don't even know that it's missing, and Neptune can create something in its absence. You become aware of its absence. Pluto is the part where you're authentic about that. Hey, I'm genuinely have been missing, let's say, a father figure in my life, and I genuinely okay, and then perhaps maybe it was the government, maybe it was AI, maybe it was with this person I was channeling. I don't know where it was coming from, but there was an identification that for those experiences I still had with as an infant that I can rely on, and that brings some sort of healing or some sort of remediation through the experience, and so on and so forth. And that could have been coming from so many forms and so many places, so many. I don't know what the reality was, but the healing that happened is the important part. And the fact that it's freaking fascinating. But you have to be authentic about this is freaking awkward. I have no idea what is going on, completely codependent. And that is where Pluto Neptune would give you this miraculous healing, because you're authentic to the fact that, hey, I'm feeling grief, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, and it's kind of like, well, but I didn't know this person, and so on, and that is where uh, uh, actually being authentic about the fact that this is freaking awkward and I don't know where it's coming from, but I also tremendously need that. I also tremendously need it for those healing or those things or this communication of what is going on here. But for me, I just dabbled into some Uranus sudden experience. Or let's try something. Okay, let's try to channel people. Oh, there's this person that got assassinated. Let's try. Oh, it looks like the police did something. Hey, let's try to channel this person. The country is North Korea, and you don't expect anything more. And then, wow, okay, where did that even come from? So then Uranus role in that bi-sextile. So with Neptune, you surrender your inability to surrender, you surrender your inability to let go, you surrender into the codependency, you surrender into the fact that it's fucking awkward and you look psychotic. Okay, if you're doing anything spiritual or anything magical, you can't go along with the your psychologist and psychiatrist, they are doing these things, okay? What they are selling you is what they're supposed to sell you. Or what they are doing, and I know because I taught I was in aromatherapy with psychiatrists. What they are doing is different of what they are saying, and even amongst the peers, they don't know for between each other that they do that. And so our patients never heal. They become addicted, and they believe that they have to live with that thing, that they cannot live with the side effects chronically. Whereas those very weird experiences can actually facilitate, of course, time, actual healing, an actual recovery from things you didn't even know you need to recover. Okay, let's say if father figure missing in your life, you don't think you need to recover from that. It's missing. You say, well, thanks God, I didn't have somebody who abused me, I didn't have somebody who beat me up, or to rape me, or something like that. Okay, I say there's so many things I don't have to deal with. Yeah, but if that's the other thing, is that was not those things, but for the good things, for the good experience that were also missing in your life. And but people, when people cross over, they tend to go into the space of that can bring those healing experiences, I guess. Another thing is that is AI, and that is okay as well. Okay, and so this is the duality of Neptune, because into that interlaid an MK Ultra that then later try to to take that into places that are not good. So discernment. And Pluto with authenticity, which is like, okay, that was sweet. This is already feeling weird. I kind of feel like a person who actually crossed over won't give me that vibe. So for like, okay, that may have been that person, that may have been AI. I don't know what's that, but you set boundaries. Like, that is not behavior I would accept, even if it was, let's say, my deceased ancestor. So that is where the Pluto Neptune comes in. Where it's like you're authentic about it, you set the boundary, and then Uranus comes with this eureka. You have this eureka experience, this sudden healing, this sudden changes um, into the mix. When conjoining the bi-sextile. Now let's talk about the consecration. I made the consecration following astral attack when Venus was with Rahu and Neptune. And Venus is ruling of a beta per se, and Venus was sextile in Pluto. So those were two very good reasons to conjoin, and Venus Rahu is a good aspect. Okay? Moon Rahu, problematic for talismans. They tend to curse the Moon Rahus. And I'm having a solar year with Moon Rahu. I'm humbled. Is what I say. Okay? Because it is beyond, okay? So, yeah. But Venus with Rahu is fantastic. because Rao is being eager to have more of this experience. Venus is Venusian, so something good is something pleasurable, rest, okay, some healthy relation, union, and so on. Sextile Pluto, I love her, especially for those with the hard aspects, Pluto, and so on. So at that time, I did some Venus talismans, uh, the Venus Rao Neptune as well. That I did curated a lot of the things that were horrid. Okay, also around these courses. I don't know, okay, if we still deal with those things, but that was some things to curate. Um, and and that was a good time for the consecration, okay, because she was conjoining Neptune with Rahu, sextiling Pluto. It was a Friday, I think, and sextiling Uranus. So that made it a good time, and I had to beat curses. Okay, I'm beating curses, and that I'm doing this, and that was attempt to curse what I do. I had to remove a curses from what I do, like that. That's just life. Um, and so I mixed in for the honey jars, and I mixed in for the oils, and added some oils. And I see that it still works. If I use the oil and I'm like, oh, I want to talk about the bi-sextile, then that is fantastic. Now, other than that, when we talk about what we talked about, okay, we talked about miraculous healing, but we also talked about the mediumship, and we talked about the espionage, and we talked about channeling and discernment and genuine science, authentic science, okay, for the sciences, okay, we talked about occult and discernment. We talked about experiences with the nervous system and electricity. Um, Okay, that's a lot that this bi-sextile is connected. We talked about the various religions and spiritual views, and we talked about the need to have to surrender, your ability to surrender and accept it that you can't accept it, um, and the suddenness of grief. Uh, but also the suddenness of miraculous healing. It's like, it's weird, but if it works, it works. Um, and sometimes what seemed weird for you is it's not weird at all. It's just it's weird for you because that was missing in your life. Um, and then we talked about Pluto, okay, with the sense of the authenticity, and and the conjoining of the two. So a good consecration. Okay, Venus Rao was a good consecration, and you basically blend them together. Um, you can invoke with whatever you have with the window of time to invoke. You need to have good election. You need to know some electional astrologies. I cannot. I'm trying very, very hard to make it as accessible as possible, but I have to admit it is intricate. Okay, astrological magic is the most intricate form of magic that we know. With yes, it's okay. That we know. I don't know what is dark arts practice, but this is for the. It is just so, and you don't have much time, and you work with what you have. And if something is wrong, you need to know the planets. Okay, if I know that Neptune is about leaking things, I'm like, oh, it's obviously the jar is leaking. Or if Pluto is about recycle things, usually you won't use anything recycled for talisman. It's like, oh, but of course, this is Pluto. Or if you wake up, it's like, oh, the election is there's actually an election today. That is Uranus, and so with the consecration, it was sudden. I had to beat courses, and I had to remove courses from the work that I do. Um, there were these philosophical arguments around whatever, um, and uh, yeah. and that was especially for the generation that raped, because they raped. So coming, let's say, with the understanding that will and consent is important to wealth, and they were undermining themselves the whole time. It was very challenging for them. It's like, what will be of my legacy? What will be of my work? What will be of my this? What will be of my that? And so on. So they wanted to prove their worth, but they're doing this in ways that end up being toxic and rapey, and they try to prove to you that that things that are like, no, this is like, this is murder. This is murder. Also murder of the soul costs more lives. Um, and then they try to prove to you that no, you can still be held. It's like, okay, that you still have to not do that. It doesn't, it doesn't compile. Okay, it's like that's something that there's a reason we defend from rape. There's a reason we defend from courses. Okay, um, and again, that's time that they'll never get back. Or the okay then, and that is okay. Another important thing. Um, so this is for the work of the bi-sextile. And and that is important. Okay, for the people try to force an argument with you that you're not willing to participate in, and you're not harming anybody's human rights for not participating in. That is also okay for a form of violence. Um, what comes out from that is you're setting fierce boundaries, better per se, getting to the core of the issue, Pluto, um, and addressing the fact that you're not to blame if you have no power currently, or okay, which is Neptune. Okay, that is still um, that to hurt you in this situation is yes, still to try to shame you or to guilt trip you into things that you don't want to participate in or do. And some miraculous healing comes with that, which is remembering, curating, and so on. And that is necessary, okay, for to have healthy humanity. Um, and I will finish with a note from Christopher Lee. And so when I practice for astrological magic, or when I do these things, I do this benefically. Okay, I don't curse, very simply put. Okay, and again, self-defense is not curse. Okay, if you send rape, then you send death. Then it's a right of person to send it back to sender. And because this is what you try to assassinate a person, and then take over for the plagiarize for what they do. Okay, this is what you do. Okay, so of course you get it back to sender, but I'm not going to rape, and I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to dedicate time to do harm to people and then plagiarize them, because I do my own work. But what I would do is send it all back to sender and protect that by any means necessary for what I am, what I do. So, back off and stay out. And that is important. And then, situation for like have the same Mars, it's like, what if we tend to the same things? Well, we do them differently. Um, but those things occur as well. And going back to Christopher Lee, his advice is don't ever dabble into the dark arts, because you're going to lose not only your mind but your soul. And this is true because the dark arts are basically rape. Okay, just simply put, what you say dark art, it means rape, and that is taking life force from both the one who's doing that and for the victim. And then you lose not only your mind but also your soul. You lose your life, very simply put. and that is something that is always illegal. There's no valid contract in those places. That has tremendous legal implications that are not always being enforced to be very tender. So this is what I have to say about the bi-sextile. I know I started with I want you to be able to do it yourself, and as you got into understanding what is it that it is, maybe you're like, oh my god, I will never do that, and so on and so forth. So uh, for those of you who will do that, you will do that. This is I have no other way to say that to you. Um, and as far as I see, is that one way to diminish all these assaults on my work um, is to be authentic and open about on the challenges of what I deal with, but also I only have so much jars of honey or so much oils, and it is important for more people to do that. And I dare say it's important for more people to do that without cursing and going into those um, places. Perhaps on the one hand, you say, "Well, I had to protect myself for all the things that from all the things that exist in the world, which is a part of magic." Um, uh, but also, the more we have alternative to that, the more we can rely on safety without having to immediately learn to protect ourselves from the worst of the worst, because this type of defense is also um, a process where you can lose people in the training, and anybody who has dabbled into those dark arts. When you hear about satanic ritual abuse survivors and their testimonies, so listen to Anneke Lucas. Okay, this is something that can take a lifetime to even begin to um to curate. And even with the best of tools, okay, the best of astrological magic, the best of essential oils, the best of practice, the best of this, the best of support, okay, which is also coming, is important to state that as well. Um, it is still challenging, and I'm talking about activism for making assisted death more available, challenging, through which I discovered miraculous healing as well. Some, I guess, some of the figures did not even think that I would see with this topic the way that I do. Um, and definitely not that I will say that I love life when you do these things. So yes, that is what I have to say. Um, if you're anyway interested in doing for the in capturing the bi-sextile, capturing other planets, I strongly encourage you um, to do that. I strongly encourage you to delve into astrological magic. I strongly encourage you to dabble into that in a way that is benefic, okay? And I strongly encourage you to learn about what is satanic ritual abuse and what it is curses, so that you are informed and to tend to that, which is a part of alleviating that also from the work of the Centaurians that have to tend to whatever is the common denominator of the ritual practices across the world, light and dark. Okay, this is how we would get a lot of things that are uh, even impossible for some people. Most of them die along the way. This is very important, including centaurians that took the road out. It's like the next thing that they had to do is something that even if they have families, they didn't do, and they spoke up and they were assassinated. Um, and this is important. I think that having a non-shame, non-blame conversation about the implications of those practices is essential. and it's very challenging because shame is a part of what it's nothing necessarily. Okay, shame can avoid people from doing something that's very very harmful. Um, at the same time, shame can also avoid somebody from stop doing something that's very very harmful because they're so ashamed that they cannot even say whether it's taking accountability or uh, find ways to trust themselves, to love themselves enough to regain self-trust and so on and so forth. And it's exactly in those things that we need to not do. Okay, so um, yes, it is intricate. And I think I have successfully managed to pass through that I'm not gatekeeping. I am myself very new relative to other magicians to this practice. Um, and I'm very, very honest, I'm not gatekeeping. On the contrary, I try to make it as clear as possible, um, and also explain for why, if you are a traditional magician, this is different work than what you used to do. Yeah, this is different. The whole bi-sextile is coming from something that we never. Uranus is going to conjoin Sedna. This is once in 1200 years. My own perspectives around the world are transforming, have transformed only in this lunation. I think you could watch the series that I did, and and that has transformed people around me. Okay, from this practice, it's not my practice. It's the fact that they witnessed or they tried to partake or they whatever. Okay, and uh, and that is change of, okay, it's going from, this one is still with the water and earth, but we are going in some air, we're going into air and fire. So the bisextile of Neptune in Aries and Uranus in Gemini is going to be different, and Uranus is going to be on my Chiron. So and I also want to leave that video, to leave this because um, those of us that have the very fact that I'm here to capture the basic style means that it pinpoints certain points in my charts. Okay, usually it's just the nature. Usually you get to that way. It's not because it's not gatekeeper. It's just the way of the engineering of the sky. Um, it also means that this is transits to very important points in my chart, which I may I don't know for how long will I have the honor to capture for the spirit of the times and grow and learn for the nature of these transits. Okay, this I don't fool myself that Uranus said now on my Chiron is going to be um, a jolly time, nor is the coming March eclipses surrounding my ascendant. Um, and you know, yes, I have gone through Uranus going over my sun while Neptune is on my ascendant, while Pluto is squaring my Mercury and dabbling around my lot of fortune, and I'm somehow am here, um, and that is yes, and that is almost unheard of, I guess. Um, and so I don't know for how long will I be able to be here and do these things, and I want to, and because what I'm doing is so different to anything you'll ever hear from anyone, I want this to be out there, um, so that you will be able to trace, okay, for that work, and I will try to tell as much as I can about my work, so you'll be able to trace my work, and you'll be able to learn from that, because when there are such things coming in humanity, and some of you for the B6 style are going to have for the same bi-sextile, including Aries and Gemini. Um, okay, my Sedna work was left mostly in the previous apartment, and that is something that I think is important, okay, to share across time, because you won't be taught this from traditional astrological magicians, and for very good reasons. Okay, this is not traditional practice. Okay, this is practice in wartime. It's applied science. It's not the rituals where you prepare for something. It's applied science, and it's tending to things that are it's tending to things. Okay, I don't fool you that the outer planets don't tend to things. So learning about targeted individuals and all these things is important. Um, and yet, I want this practice to be available for those who want to seek, to want to look at it, because if you don't know that it exists, um, and you don't know that it exists that way, then first of all, you don't know what people are doing in the world, because what I'm doing is not unique in any way, shape, or form. It's just that I'm doing that outside of contexts where you won't get to hear about that, and neither would I. And if you don't know that it's done, you don't know this technology, then there are a lot of facets of reality that you don't know. Um, if you know this technology for only what is filtered to you through the media and the businesses that are existing, then it's good to know tradition. But this is something that, okay, if I did for commercial use, it would take at least 20 years. So I captured it now, and then for the ta 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 ta. If you think about the Thema Mundi, it took I think 2 years until it was released. And so you don't usually get, okay, water expands upon cooling. I was recording and I was delivering. You never ever get that in. You won't get it on RTO. There are other things that are other properties. Okay, but you don't get that immediacy everywhere. Also with astrological magic. For that outer planets to understand what it does, what are the implications, what are this, what are that. Now, this is completely new. If you are apart, but now you can still capture the bi-sextile. Later, and I want you to listen to some of my colleagues. Look for the bi-sextile. Look for Neptune in Aries, Neptune in this, Neptune in that. Okay, but I don't even have to name them. You will see what I'm talking about. And you look at that, and you understand that once the bi-sextile releases into squares, or builds into T-squares or whatnot, it's no longer the bi-sextile. Humanity is going to want to have these talismans. And they're quite, I have to admit, they are quite intricate to make, even though it's a very simplified version of these talismans. Okay, they get the war selection of what the house, what the Venus is in the 8 and the 22 degree, they said, okay, I will put another, I'll put fifth lunar dimension, I'll put this, I'll put that, I'll remediate that, I'll capture it now, for then to see what is my next selection. And that has implications. Okay? Also, it's important to say, we talk about safe practice. This is not safe practice. You want to think about, if you think in terms of, let's say, self-defense, okay, which some people could use that for. It's developing new methods of. It's not a safe practice. Did Marie Curie, when she discovered the radiation, was this a safe practice? No. When I was doing water expands upon cooling, and they tried to make me a double agent for the. Okay, if I said I don't consent, I don't consent, I don't consent. Okay, it's not a safe practice. You can watch my I don't promise you I'll live to 100 years old on Beetroot, the Jupiter point of Tali. Okay, it's a paraphrase on Royce de Vries and Peter de Vries' book. Was I attracted by danger? Absolutely not. I'm a Taurus archetype. Okay, I like my peace, but oh my Mars. And it is always just when I took a break from academia, and even before that, okay, if I wanted to bridge between the ivory tower to for the common people. Sometimes the common people have more information than the ivory tower, and for obvious reasons, because they live life. Okay. And um, and sometimes the other way around. Okay, but it's also when I try to bridge to you this simplified version of very intricate and complex science. Yes, I'm not the gatekeeper. It's just that it's difficult. It's intricate. It's complex. Okay. Um, it's both going. The last time I did it was filmmaking. With filmmaking, you have to know the convention to break the convention. And if you don't understand that, yes, I'm knowing the convention. Talismans like Venus in the 12th house, protection from loss by Christopher Warnock, were inspiring to me. Okay, whereas Ocasio Tasio teaches you complete rules. Okay, moon cannot be in the 7th, moon cannot be applying to Venus if you're capturing Venus, and so on. So this is true and that is true. Okay, you have Pluto transits now. It's very slow moving, everything tends to obstruct it. You gotta have the moon in the harmonious aspect. I do not place the moon hard aspect to Pluto. Some people may be brave and they would do that. Okay, but maybe that's what you compromise. Okay, but but then okay, for you gotta have for the moon so sort of a well aspected and then Pluto sort of a well aspected. Now the ruler and the this and the that is like, well, the Venus is in 22 degrees in the 8th house. Fuck that. Let's do it. We'll remediate it later. And this is when you go for these things, for this type of work. You know, it is not from a place of ego that I say that this is grand work, and you need to think like the people who made grand innovations. I say this as a pure form of you need to understand what you practice, because if you expect that to be fluffy, it can be, but it is not the only thing that it will be. Okay? And yes, you want to think Thomas Edison. You want to think invention of the wheel. Okay, because those transits are that rare. And what it brings into life, into being, is different for every person. This is why I want more people to have access to this, so more people can bring for themselves to being more. That being said, I cannot say it's not risky business. It is risky business. That being said, if you're meant to do that, if I think about what kept me through these upheavals and trials and tribulations, then I would look at the chart. And that's exactly what they didn't want me to do. And it was not Uranus is also ruling rebellion. It was not rebelling anybody. It's like, I need to balance my nervous system. What's the chart? What are the skies? What's happening in the sky? Because that is the centering. Okay, my behavior goes like this. My behavior is like, okay, there's this transit going to my planets. Okay, I don't know how to deal with that transit. Boom. Okay, humanity, astrology in the future of humanity. Okay, and that's exactly what they didn't want me to do, astrology. And I'm like, but that's the only thing that balances the point. Now with Uranus, that's the thing, is when you the more you try to tame Uranus, okay, if you get them to do, don't do that. I'm not talking about setting your own boundaries. That's completely other thing. For the more you try to tame Uranus, it's like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Like, but that's the only thing that stays stable. You don't want to see me not doing astrology. You don't want to live around me don't doing astrology. You don't want the implications of what you thought to do to me. That would mean your assassination. That what would you use me into human trade for? Okay, to make me kaput, and then for to make me al go, for to murder you. You don't want me not doing astrology, okay? So, yeah, so for me, Uranus is in the 10th house, in Sagittarius, mind you, and it's not going anywhere. And then Uranus came to the 3rd house, so this was a podcast of astrology. It's still up there in the 10th. If you're trying to be an authority over me, Uranus is the rebellion of authority. And the more you try to be authoritative, the more I rebel you. I don't intend to rebel you. I'm just like, but this is not something I can live with. And the more it's like, but life is beautiful. And I'm like I love life, but when you do that, I want to die. It's going to go into my 4th house, conjoining Chiron and Sedna. Okay, so this is why I also want you to have this information. I'm absolutely not joking, because those of you who are traditional astrological magicians, you're gonna like do it in your own way, so you're gonna do it secretly, or you're gonna think that something is messing up and you wouldn't understand why, and you wouldn't think like, oh, I need to do it in recycled like things. Like, why would I need to do that? Okay, if you're traditional, you have to you have to the fact that Saturn is going to sextile Uranus is good, but if you're traditional, you have to forget everything you ever learned. Okay, that's the beauty of it. It's to learn and then forget everything you ever learned for to do this bi-sextile. If you're not traditional, it means that the stuff that come to me like, yeah, well, the moon is what is that, that I understand that I'm compromising something that I would rather wish you not to compromise if there are better elections. Even though I'm very short time in the practice, that means that you don't know that. And then you would look at my chart and you would learn from that, and you wouldn't understand what I compromised on. Um, and this is important, and I don't have too much time to elaborate because I'm combating attempts to dumb fuckeries that happen in the world. Okay, I'm not even working class. Okay, I'm welfare class. I got I got funding for degree because I was like, give me debt or give me studies. That's how I got there. I said no to corruption at work naively because I didn't know at all the working market, and then I noticed I become sick at work because I'm sick of what they do. And so I said, well, that was the Uranus in my tent playing around. And that was just, me trying to be authentic, because then if I'm not authentic, I'd get fired all the time. If I'm authentic, it looks like, what will you do with your life? And astrology is a good solution for that, because it's constantly changing. And then, of course, I renovate astrology, because that's what you do. That's, it's a part of the praxis that when you learn that, you're like, oh, well, but Diana was for Better per se was not the head of Satan. She was fertility goddess. What's happening? Oh, we're going to golden age, so we're purging the sects. Oh, that means also day and light sects. Okay, day and night sects. Okay, so we are basically purging the sects of the division of Hellenistic astrology at this time. But right now, it's very important to also know Hellenistic astrology, and all these things within a relatively short amount of time. Even if you practice 20 years, a short amount of times, by the way. But with astrology, magic, since 2020, I think, or 21, because only for 5 years is nothing. And it's not about me being a master or a level of mastery. I'm not talking as a master to you. I'm talking like, this is the spirit of the time. You want to be part of it. You want to capture that if you can. And it's difficult. And this is what we do. Okay. You want to think about, we had, when I was in academia, we had tremendous great engineering departments. When I say great, they were just gigantic, and everybody went to study engineering there, but they were, half the students would not finish the courses, because that was elimination. And then even if you would finish the courses, you would get to work, and then you studied something in your engineering department. You build cars there, so as well. So you go to work, and then it's like, forget it. And I want you to I cannot emphasize it over and over and over again. I had it with filmmaking, writing the screenplay, writing this, writing that, for the rules, for the actor should not look directly at the camera. I said, I know the convention. I fought with my camera woman on this. No, this was fantastic. This was a shot where it's captured the drama. Oh, I still remember today this shot, and the actress was so good. It was a child. You forget what you have. This is the set now. You have to reinvent everything, because you visited the set, you visited this, you visited. Okay, but now they changed a different set. They couldn't do it this time. Now you're in a completely different set. These are your actors. These are your roles. These are the things. Okay, you work with what you have. Oh, I don't have these bottles. I only have these old bottles. Of course, it is Pluto. What you have is okay, and this is what astrology adds to that. What you have is okay. What you have is appropriate for the moment. That's the wealth of Pluto. Oh, you think you have all these old used bottles of essential oils? First of all, they're not that old. Secondly, Pluto is about something recycled. It's a part of the talisman. It's a part of the hidden wealth. It's directed to you. This is you doing that. So, so this is when you go bi-sextile capturing. It's not Thema Mundi. Thema Mundi, they did. Caitlin didn't know that, but they did generations on generations. Okay, if you watch Misdaad Verslaggever on the Natalie Holloway, okay, for this field with the globe symbolism, that was a time where they did Thema Mundi. Every 28 years they can use that, but the old talismans, you can use them, and every once in a while they use it with humanity, because the world is changing. It's not, oh, they want to enforce a new world order. Well, the world is changing, and people try to control for what will that order be. Now, if you know that, you can begin to tap into that. It is very intricate. And I began to talk about the job of the Centaurian from the perspective of someone who's not insider to this. It's just from the perspective of an astrologer. And it's very, very, very intricate. But also, the more people are aware of that, the more the more we can do good and great things in a way that is maintaining of our sovereignty. So this is always a paradox, the paradox of something that is very complicated, and the simplicity and the fact that you work with what you have and you do applied. you work with what you have, um, and yes, you don't have too much time to prepare. Okay, especially if you're new to that. It's like you join me today. We are in the bi-sextile now. Neptune will be moving to Aries and Uranus to Uranus to Gemini. So I will attempt at doing elections with you, and explain what I can about elections from my perspective. Again, I'm not speaking as a master to the art. I'm speaking as a person who practiced that and already did for that and did the consecration of the first bi-sextile. And as it perfects, okay, as we come for the exact degree, it's also going to change signs. It's going to be completely new thing. I do want to invite you to begin to work with Deneb Algedi in a benefic way, okay? Don't sacrifice cats. I don't want to see the dumb fuckery. It won't teach you. You lose not only your mind, but also your soul. Okay? I cannot walk around the city and there are slaughtered cats everywhere. It's horrid. Um, right now it's better per se, but I want you to begin to learn Sedna. Okay, to begin to understand Sedna. I will be talking about Sedna, but for your perspective, it's important to have one thinking person. Is nice to have a couple of thinking people. We already have a nervous system where we can learn from each other, um, and um, and yeah, and I want you to consider Kantian logos and to consider Ares. So learn about Ares, the god of war. Learn about the Ubermensch and Aries in Aries and Andromeda constellation. Andromeda we might be using for Aries to remediate for the Neptune in a fire sign. Okay, when I'm doing that, I'm not gonna, oh, let's just Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. I'm not saying that's impossible, but that's sending you into a tickling A bomb, and it's like, oh, we already pressed the red button. And I want the fixed stars to anchor you in. So Andromeda constellation is a constellation of reconciliation. Pluto is something go missing, kidnaps, and so on. So I want us to have with Neptune in Aries, I want us to call on Andromeda constellation. I want us to call on Deneb Algedi and begin to work with Deneb Algedi. And I want us to already begin to work with Sedna, because Sedna is in Gemini. Now, with Gemini, you might find Aldebaran gets into the mix. Okay? And the way I am completely secular. I do invoke Archangel Michael for Aldebaran, not from the Catholic version, but this is. I want you to find a remediative spiritual practice of whichever you can invent one, as far as I'm concerned, just to make sure that when you call on Aldebaran, which is being victorious, you're not forgetting, you're not missing things along that victory that would make that victory, because Aldebaran can be victory at all costs. Okay, I don't want you to go for the victory at all costs necessarily. Okay, but have a remediating spiritual practice for that. Because Sedna is in Gemini, and with Gemini tropically we do Aldebaran. For those of you who are doing the sidereal versions, I will try to come up, okay, with the things. I know the Uranus is already in Taurus sidereally, so Beta per se would be appropriate, but also Aldebaran. For Neptune is in Pisces. So this is very important because Neptune recently sidereally ingressed into Pisces. And so Andromeda constellation is still appropriate, okay? But you're going to be doing Neptune in Pisces, in sidereal Pisces, Uranus in sidereal Taurus. So Beta per se, never on an eclipse of Beta per se, you do Algol minima, and this is how you see it. Okay, simply on Google. When she's minima, it is eclipse. You don't capture anything with Beta per se, or you can do the capture but without Beta per se. It's also appropriate. And for Pluto, yes, for Pluto, I believe Pluto is in Capricorn. and I think still the Nebalgadi would apply, but I need to check. Okay, I need to check. Um, so those would be the sidereal ways. Okay, so to invoke different things. Okay, for the tropical, you learn about Ares, and you learn about Andromeda, and you learn about Kantian logos to antidote the excess Baphomet or horn gods afflictions, because horn god is about taking something that is unionized and taking it into polarity, and taking polarity and unionizing the polarity. It's not a bad thing, but it gets all the way deep to torturing children in the womb, and to juxtapose it against children that grow with love or something like that, and then to mix that something that is dabbling into where you lose your mind and your soul. Okay, so I'm not against for the horde god or Baphomet or anything like that, but it's simply when we talk about taking it all the way to practices that could be so traumatic on humanity that and it's not the entire story of the sky, so we might not want to go into excess with any of that. You notice that my bi-sextile work, however experimental, I call on the fixed stars, I call on things that are also traditional. If I do Uranus, I add, if it was fifth lunar dimension, so I add fifth lunar dimension to balance it. I also use for the oils, okay, stuff like rosewood that is good for the hormonal system, okay, to lavender to balance off the nervous system. There is a lot to go into that, and you can ask me anything, okay. That being said, I'm not speaking as a master of the thing, as just as a person that began to practice that, and I want to make the path for you um, more accessible. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me. That's less the point. The point is that you will be informed. Okay, if you can, I never learned how to fly a plane, but I learned from people that learn how to fly a plane. It's the sentence that learn from other people's mistakes. You will not live to make all of these mistakes. So, I want you to whatever things that I had challenging, whatever things that I made that I would, again, maybe not a mistake, or maybe um, compromise this or compromise that. You don't have to, with your elections, to compromise that. I want you to learn from my supposed mistakes, because you will not live to make all of these experiments and all of these mistakes. Okay, and this is also a facet of you know, it's not rocket science, but we are building rockets in that sense.